Pickleball, right. It's not the Olympics or anything, but someone should tell that to my aching muscles after a few games, you know? All those quick stops and starts, especially my shins. They've taken a beating.
Yeah, it's interesting how something that, well, looks so gentle can be so hard on the body.
Oh, totally. It's like those optical illusions, you know?
Yeah.
Your brain's like, wait, this should be easy, but your body knows the truth.
Exactly.
Speaking of illusions, remember that time I tried to, like, channel my inner Federer? I went for this epic dive for the ball
Uh-oh.
and totally face-planted. I swear, for a second there, I thought I could defy gravity.
Gravity always wins.
It does, doesn't it? But seriously, those quick movements and, like, bursts of energy, they can really do a number on your joints and muscles if you're not careful.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, we're seeing that more and more. There's actually a pretty alarming trend of pickleball-related injuries popping up.
Alarming, like, how alarming are we talking? Give me the numbers.
Okay, so buckle up, because a recent study actually showed a 38% increase in pickleball-related visits to the emergency room.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. 38%.
Yep.
In, like, what time frame?
Just the past 5 years.
Wow. Okay, I knew it was getting more popular, but 38%, that's like a whole different level of ouch.
Right, and it really highlights why understanding how to prevent these injuries is so crucial.
Okay, so how do we avoid becoming a cautionary tale then?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think a good place to start is understanding the most common injuries that pickleball players face.
Okay, let's do it. Hit me with your best injury all-star lineup.
All right, so first up, we have rotator cuff strains and tears. All those overhead smashes and serves, they look impressive, but they can really do a number on your shoulders, especially if you haven't warmed up properly or if your body's not used to that kind of motion.
Makes sense, like asking your shoulder to star in an action movie without sending it to stunt training first.
Okay, what else? Next, we have the infamous tennis elbow.
Oh, tennis elbow. Classic.
Yeah, and don't let the name fool you. It's a big deal in pickleball, too. All that gripping and swinging, you know, it can really irritate those tendons in your elbow.
Ouch. Yeah, I've definitely felt that twinge before. Not my favorite. What's next?
Number 3 is Achilles tendonitis. Remember all those quick starts and stops we talked about?
Oh yeah, my shins are still recovering from our last game.
Well, all those movements can put a real strain on your Achilles tendon, especially if your shoes aren't giving you enough support.
It's like asking a race car to perform on regular tires, right? Not going to end well. Okay, what else makes the list?
Knees are another big one. We're talking meniscus tears, ligament sprains, all of it. All that pivoting and lunging, especially on harder courts, can really do some damage.
Ouch, knees and pickleball, a risky combination. What's the last of the big injuries we need to watch out for?
Last but not least, wrist sprains and fractures.
Oh yeah, the dreaded wrist injuries. So many people I know have had those.
It's more common than you'd think, and a lot of it comes down to having the right paddle grip and technique. But we can get into that a bit later.
Definitely. So now that we know what we're up against, what are the biggest risk factors for these injuries?
Well, age is a big one. It's just a fact of life that our bodies don't bounce back the way they used to.
Ugh, tell me about it.
We might not be as flexible or as quick or as strong.
Yeah. My knees haven't been the same since, well, let's just say a while ago.
But you're still out there playing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Age is just a number after all, right?
Exactly. But it's about being mindful, right? We need to be aware of our body's limitations as we get older, adjust our playing style, maybe rethink that warm-up routine.
Okay, so age, what else? What other risk factors should we have on our radar?
Improper technique is a big one. Bad habits on the court can definitely lead to problems.
So bad habits equal bad news for our bodies.
Pretty much. And this actually ties into our next risk factor, which is skipping your warm-up or neglecting conditioning. It's like you wouldn't run a marathon without stretching first, right?
Okay, yeah, you're totally right. I'll admit I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I get so excited to play that I just run out there. But you're right, warming up is crucial.
It makes all the difference.
We'll come back to that. But for now, what else? What other risks do we need to keep in mind?
Overuse. Even too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Our bodies just aren't designed to play pickleball for hours on end, day after day, without a break.
So it's like that sweater you love that you wear every single day, and then one day, it just falls apart.
Okay, well, maybe not quite that dramatic, but I get your point.
Right. It's all about pacing yourself, I guess. So
Yeah.
Overuse. What else?
We've got to talk about equipment, too, specifically shoes and the court surface itself.
Oh, right. Because playing on a, like, bumpy, uneven court can't be good. And what about the shoes? What's the big deal?
Well, the wrong shoes on a questionable court are just asking for trouble.
It's like trying to play tennis in flip-flops.
Exactly.
Not a good look.
Not at all. But luckily, we'll dive into all that gear a little later on.
Music to my ears. Now, you mentioned warming up earlier, and honestly, I think we need to dedicate some time to talking about that more.
I agree. It's something a lot of people skip, but it's so essential for preventing injuries.
Okay, so let's talk warm-ups. What are the most important things people can do to make sure their pickleball match doesn't turn into a visit to the physical therapist? Okay, so we've warmed up our muscles. Now it's time to warm up our technique. What are some of those common mistakes that people make on the court that could lead to, well, disaster?
Oh, technique. This is where things get really interesting. It's not just about looking like a pro out there.
Right.
It's about using your body in a way that's both effective and safe.
Okay, so less about flashy moves and more about smart moves.
Exactly. And it all starts with the foundation, your grip and your swing. A lot of people, especially when they're just starting out, they make the mistake of gripping the paddle way too tightly.
Oh, the death grip.
The death grip, exactly. And all that does is put a ton of stress on your wrist and your elbow.
Which we know are already prime targets for pickleball injury.
Exactly. You don't want to be squeezing the life out of the paddle. Hold it firmly, yes, but not rigidly.
So relax the grip, let the paddle become one with your hand,
Yeah.
all that jazz.
I love that. And then when you swing, try to let the bigger muscle groups in your shoulders and back do the work. Don't just rely on your wrist.
It's a team effort.
Exactly. Work smarter, not harder. Engage those bigger muscles, protect the smaller ones.
Love it. Speaking of working smarter, let's talk about footwork. You got to be light on your feet out there, ready to move in any direction.
Absolutely. No statues on the pickleball court.
Pickleball ballet.
I love it.
Okay, but seriously, you're constantly moving, adjusting, reacting. What can we do to, make sure all that movement doesn't end in a faceplant?
It's all about those small movements, staying on your toes. And when you're up at the net, a little bend in the knees goes a long way.
So it's like being a coiled spring ready to pounce.
Exactly.
Okay, and how about the wrist? We've got to protect those wrists.
Absolutely. We talked about gripping the paddle too tightly. Well, the same goes for overusing your wrist during your swing. Think of your wrist as a conductor, not the entire orchestra.
No wrist-only power shots then.
Exactly. Engage your shoulder, your forearm. Use those big muscles to generate the power, and let your wrist focus on control and finesse.
Got it. So it's all about finding that balance. Power and precision. What about serving? That seems like it could be risky too.
Oh, for sure. But here's the thing. Serving is about finesse, not force.
Interesting.
It's not about how hard you can hit the ball.
It's about accuracy.
Yes. Think of it like you're a surgeon performing a delicate procedure. You want to be precise, controlled.
So I should be serving like a brain surgeon instead of trying to hit a home run.
Precisely. Focus on smooth, controlled movements and use your entire body to generate power.
Okay, so serving is all about finesse. What about dinking and volleying? Those seem like they require lightning-fast reflexes.
They do, but even with those quick movements, we can still prioritize safety and prevent injuries.
Fill me in. How so?
Well, with dinking, it's all about touch. Keep that paddle up, make contact out in front of your body, nice and controlled.
Okay, got it. Soft touch, like I'm playing a giant game of ping pong. What about volleying? Any tips for those up-close and personal exchanges at the net?
Volleying is all about anticipation. Be ready, paddle up, let that ball come to you. Don't be afraid to move your feet. And again, don't try to hit a winner every time.
Sometimes the best offense is good defense. I like it. Speaking of improving our game, I was reading this article earlier, and they had this funny tip, but it's actually pretty smart.
Oh, yeah? What is it?
They suggested filming yourself play. I know it sounds a little vain, but they said it can be really helpful for spotting those little things you might not even realize you're doing wrong.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing what you can see when you watch yourself play back. You can spot those little hitches in your technique, those moments where you're not moving your feet properly, or maybe you're gripping the paddle too tightly.
I'm already cringing at the thought of watching my less than graceful moves in slow motion.
I know, it can be a little brutal at first, but honestly, it's one of the best ways to identify areas for improvement.
Yeah, probably true. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Warming up, technique. What about gear?
Ah, yes. Gear. We can't forget about that. Having the right equipment is crucial.
So what should we be looking for when it comes to choosing a paddle, shoes, that kind of thing? Because I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like I'm walking into a pickleball fashion show. So many options.
I know, right? It can be overwhelming for sure.
Yeah.
But let's start with the paddle. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. The best paddle for you is going to depend on your playing style, how long you've been playing, even just your build and your height.
So it's about finding what feels right for you.
Exactly. But one thing that's really important, especially when it comes to preventing injuries, is making sure you have the correct weight and grip size.
So how do I know if a paddle's too heavy, too light, or just right? And what about the grip?
A paddle that's too heavy, it's going to put a lot of strain on your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder, especially if you're playing for a while. You're going to tire out faster. You might even injure yourself. But on the other hand, if a paddle's too light, you might find yourself overcompensating, which can lead to other issues like muscle strain. So it's really about finding that sweet spot.
Goldilocks and the 3 pickleball paddles.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've found the perfect weight. What about grip size? How do you know what feels right?
Well, a grip that's too small means you're going to have to grip the paddle tighter to maintain control, which, again, puts a lot of stress on your wrist, your forearm. But if it's too big, it's going to be hard to even hold on to it comfortably, let alone swing it properly.
Finding that sweet spot is key. Okay, so we've got our Goldilocks paddle. What's next on our gear list?
Shoes. This is where I see a lot of people trying to take shortcuts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But trust me, the right footwear is so important for preventing injuries.
What kind of shoes should we be looking for?
Look for shoes specifically designed for court sports, pickleball, tennis, something like that. You want good support, good stability, good cushioning.
Okay, so ditch the flip-flops. Got it. What about those really fancy, expensive shoes? Do those actually make a difference, or is that just like a marketing ploy?
Well, a little bit of both, honestly.
Really?
A good supportive shoe is important, but don't get too caught up in the hype. Look for something that fits you well, supports your feet, and is designed for the specific demands of pickleball.
Function over fashion.
To a certain extent, yes. Now, another piece of gear we can't forget, eye protection.
Oh, yeah. I've been on the receiving end of a few too many stray pickleballs.
It happens, but seriously, a pickleball to the eye is not something you want to mess with. Yeah.
It's not on my watch. So we've covered the paddle, the shoes, the eye protection. What else can we do to really minimize our risk of injury?
We have to talk about recovery.
Recovery.
Yeah. It's just as important as everything else we've talked about, if not more so.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into pickleball injury prevention, if our listeners only remember one thing from this whole conversation, what should it be?
Honestly, listen to your body. It really is that simple.
Listen to your body. Easier said than done sometimes, though,
Yep,
right?
it's true, but it's so important.
Because
Well, your body is always giving you signals, right? Like if you're feeling any pain, any tightness, unusual fatigue, that kind of thing.
those are all signs to, like, slow down, maybe.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times we try to push through it, really.
We do. But pain is your body's way of telling you something's not right.
Like a little warning flag.
Yes, so don't ignore those flags.
Right. Pain is not like a challenge to be conquered.
It's not.
It's a warning to be heeded. So if something's hurting, take a break, rest. And if it doesn't get better, what then?
See a doctor. Simple as that.
Right. Don't try to diagnose it yourself. Get some expert help.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Warming up, technique, gear, recovery. Any other final nuggets of wisdom to impart before we let our listeners go?
Oh, one other thing we didn't really get to, court awareness.
Oh, yeah, pickleball etiquette. Like, don't hog the court, be a good sport, that sort of thing.
Well, that too, but it's also about safety. Like, be aware of the other players, especially when things get really active up at the net.
So no accidental pickleball headshot.
No headshots. And be mindful of where you're standing when people are serving, when people are hitting the ball. Even at lower speeds, a pickleball can really do some damage if it hits you in the wrong spot.
Right, it's like those signs at the zoo. Don't feed the animals.
Yes.
Except for pickleball, it's
Yep.
don't get hit by the ball.
Exactly. And then, just in general, make sure to call your shots.
Oh, right. Communication is key.
So important. It prevents collisions, makes sure everyone's on the same page, you know.
Love it. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, now I want to circle back to that statistic we talked about earlier. The whole reason we decided to do this deep dive in the first place.
The rise in pickleball injuries.
Yes, 38% increase in ER visits. That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is, and it's a reminder that these things do happen.
Right, so as much as we love this game, we have to take it seriously.
Absolutely. But the good news is a lot of these injuries are preventable.
If you know what to look out for, if you're proactive, you can minimize your risk significantly.
Exactly.
Knowledge is power, people. Okay, so as we officially wrap up our pickleball injury prevention extravaganza, I want to leave everyone with a little challenge.
A challenge. Okay, I like it.
So, listeners, here's what I want you to think about. What is one small change that you can make today, based on everything we've talked about, to up your pickleball safety game?
I love that. It doesn't have to be anything major.
Exactly. Maybe it's buying new shoes. Or maybe it's adding 5 minutes of stretching to your warm-up routine.
Or maybe you decide you're finally going to film yourself playing to analyze that backhand.
Yes. Whatever it is, big or small, I think it's so important to just be mindful, be intentional.
I agree.
And who knows, maybe your one small change will inspire your friends to be more mindful too, right?
The pickleball ripple effect.
I love it. All right, everyone, we've had a blast geeking out over pickleball safety with you today, but now we want to hear from you. Head over to our social media pages and tell us what your biggest takeaway was. What's one thing you learned? Or if you have any funny injury stories, because we know you do, share those
Oh,
too.
we definitely want to hear those.
Use the hashtag pickleball safety so we can all see. And until next time, everyone, stay safe out there and have fun.
Happy pickling.
See you next time.